Well, hello, Fremont County. Welcome to our inaugural, is that how you say it? Inaugural show of One Fremont. Today's date, for anyone wondering, is June 9th, 2025 for this inaugural show. A lot of this has to do because of our loss of our radio station and our ability to communicate via that media platform. And so the commissioners here in Fremont County have decided to embark on this little trek of putting together a occasional podcast that we will share via our social media so that we can keep people informed and hopefully get this out there into the public so people can know what's going on here in Fremont County. But we, just to introduce ourselves, for the millions out there listening to this, because this will be available publicly, and so the reach is the world. We'll be talking obviously more about local Fremont County issues and the world issues maybe as in relation to the Fremont County situations. But just a quick introduction. We have our District 2 Commissioner, Debbie Bell.
Good morning.
Good morning. And our Commissioner from District 3, Dwayne McFall.
Good morning, Fremont County.
And myself, what is my name? Kevin Grantham.
Let us know if we need to help.
I need lots of help. Fremont County Commissioner, District 1. I'm going to take my first little moment here to, before we dive into how we're going to do this first show, just kind of the accolades and the kudos to my two colleagues, because I get to do that. Maybe I'll tell you how red their faces turn, because they won't be able to see it. Everybody dressed in their clown suits, I see today. Just kidding.
Well, you told us to.
I wish you could see the visual.
For the occasion.
For the occasion. Just to brag on my colleagues here, because I get to work with a couple of the best folks in the state of Colorado here. And I had this discussion, and I'm looking across the table at them here right now. I did have this discussion over the weekend with a fellow former county official, but a current member of the legislature, who had the same thoughts about the two of you, and just how lucky I am, how lucky Fremont County is to have these two people here in the offices that they hold. Debbie Bell was first elected back in 2010. A banner year for both of us, actually.
Indeed it was.
And she is a Fremont County native and has seen a lot that has happened here in Fremont County. And I was putting together some words and stuff for this day, and just some of the events that have transpired over the last 14 and a half years since you've been in office.
It has been a lot.
Yeah,
yes.
It has been a lot. And maybe we'll get to some of that today if I quit talking.
Oh, no, you're doing fine.
And Dwayne McFall, Fremont County Commissioner, District 3, who was first elected in 2016. Correct? And Dwayne and his knowledge on ag issues and water and his advocacy there, not just locally, but in the state and nationally as well, which I hope we can kind of get to today if time allows. We will be able to do this again and again, so it's not going to be a big issue as far as whether we get to everything or not that I have envisioned. But kind of looking forward to this discussion. We're just going to do a roundtable discussion on some of these things, and I've kind of talked to both of you about where I kind of want to head with this first one. And just so folks know, this program, this podcast, we'll probably rotate this so that each of us can have the opportunity to bloviate for an untold amount of time at the beginning here and monologue a little bit.
Well, thanks for modeling this for us, Kevin. You've done an excellent job so far.
Well, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is One Fremont, and we want to make sure that folks understand what we're trying to do here. The background, of course, we see with the radio station having kind of gone belly up and shut down. So here we are working to try to let folks know what's going on and keep people informed. And so we're going to have just a really broad scope discussion today. I'm going to call this, and you're going to roll your eyes at this, trust me, and trust me, everybody. The two across the table from me are rolling their eyes even before I say what I'm going to say. I'm going to call it the County Carol, with apologies to Charles Dickens, and the Christmas Carol, but we're going to talk about Fremont County past, Fremont County present, and Fremont County future. And, when we talk about the past, this is a big topic, especially when we're talking about a total of 14 years so far in office, with only 14 more to go.
Exactly.
For Commissioner Bell.
Do you know how many people in Fremont County just cringed, Kevin?
Rolled their eyes.
Rolled their eyes.
Speaking of rolling your eyes.
And between those 14 years and 14 years plus, and 8 years plus for Commissioner McFall, and for the new guy, 4+ years, there's a lot that has transpired over the course of time in all of our tenure here. So I want to talk about that, where we've been, what we've accomplished, and then we could talk a little bit about what's going on right now in Fremont County, things that are happening, even our CCI conference that we just had last week, and things like that. And maybe even if we get some time, talk about the future. What does the future hold for Fremont County, for what your vision is for this county? So let's dive in and dredge up the ghost of Fremont past.
Ooh.
And is there a sound effect on that board for? Oh,
A ghostly one. It's those little.
that's it. The chimes.
Probably could have been if we would have worn them.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that for next time. So there's a lot of topics I was thinking of as I was talking to you guys this morning and writing some stuff down. We talk about all the things that we've done, in our advocacy against and for legislation in the past. I was thinking, I mentioned specifically Dwayne this morning, Second Amendment advocacy and for and against stuff that's going on. Deregs, zoning resolutions, our commercial development plan stuff, business advocacy and promotion. Projects, I think, is a big one that I'd like you guys to talk about, because you guys are at the beginning of all of those long before I got here, and you've seen the genesis of those and the culmination of those things. Also talked a little bit about budget stuff, where we were at, and which also leads us into other parts of our discussion with the present and the future, ARPA, and what I was just talking about with Commissioner Bell was events over the course of just the last 4 years, let alone 14 years. So let's discuss. Somebody pick it up. Talk about the past. I want to start with Commissioner Bell. Tell us where
Absolutely.
This county has been. And
thank you for that opportunity. So the first thing that I would have to start with, when I came into office in January of 2011, Fremont County was in dire straits financially. We had just come out of the economic crisis of 2008. During those years, I was a reporter for the Canyon City Daily Record, and so I was the government reporter, had the opportunity to attend every county meeting, some of the workshops, some of the budget issues, and listen to what was going on here at the time. And I will tell you, it was pretty frightening. That sound effect right there was right on Commissioner McFall. He didn't even mean to do that. But that was back in the day when the county had almost nothing in reserves. I think maybe $100,000 or $200,000 in reserves. And you look at our reserve budget now, we're up at what, $4.5 million in reserves. They didn't have enough to cover a single paycheck for everyone in the county at that time if the crisis had truly come. And so the commissioners at that time did an excellent job in keeping the county up and running. There were other counties around the state that were all in exactly the same dire straits and trying to figure out how do we continue to make this work. It was nothing that had come about as a result of local action or activity. It had all come from national and state, and it was a national crisis, and everybody was pretty much, I think, in the same boat. And so some of the things that our commissioners at that time had done was they put a hiring freeze on. I remember that specifically. They also did, they gave unpaid furlough days. And as far as I can recall, everyone in the county, including all of the elected officials, except for one, I was told, chose to take those same unpaid furlough days. And so they were doing things the very best that they could. One of their most controversial decisions at that time was to close our buildings down on Fridays and to go to a 4-day work week, which when the crisis passed, we have had a lot of ongoing, continuing discussion with some of our residents about the reasons that the county does not return to a 5-day work week. And overall, what I can say is, yes, it really does save that much money for the county to not have to heat and cool all of the buildings on that additional 5th day each week. But it also allows for better service to our community because we open earlier and we stay open later. So people have the opportunity to stop in before work. They can stop in at lunch. They can maybe stop in after work. And it just seems to have worked out much, much better. And so I have often told people that I've had the opportunity to come in and to actually enjoy good economic times because by the time I showed up, the county was starting to recover from those terrible, terrible times. And we literally have done nothing but gone uphill since then. But ironically now, I think next year could be a little bit of a reversal of that, but we can hold that one for the future commentary. So for me, honestly, that's the biggest thing that I have seen in Fremont County in 14 and a half years is the turnaround economically that we have had. And financially, it's pretty remarkable where we were and where we are today.
I've mentioned that to, actually, I've mentioned that over the years here, even in the BOC.
Yeah, see?
Dramatic pause. About how fortunate I am in the same vein. Coming in here in 2021, and a lot of those tough years, that happened back in 2008, 2009, 2010, and the purposeful, thoughtful management of the county budget since then is a benefit to any one of us that comes in after the fact, and me included. And so it's easier to do budgets when a lot of good decisions have already been made. So
absolutely, and we continue to budget very conservatively, which I think started probably for real in that 2008-2009 timeframe. And I have just always felt very privileged to have followed on the footsteps of those who really started us down this path. Being very frugal and knowing that they didn't have money to throw away. They sometimes didn't have a lot of extra after, but they were always able to get the bills paid. They were always able to keep our employees paid, and they kept the doors open and the lights on. And for the economic times, that was pretty remarkable.
Right.
Yeah. And that recovery had already started by the time I showed up and walked in the door. So I feel very, very fortunate to have had those in the past leading up to me showing up here.
And just to give them their kudos, back in 2008, 2009, that was Ed Norden, Larry Lasha, and Mike Steele.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So thanks to them.
Absolutely, 100%.
Dwayne, did you have any more?
That's what I would start with for now, but thank you.
I just kind of follow along with that. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic that happens in the county. And when I came in, the budget was, I guess, on its way up. I mean, we were having a reserve. We were in pretty decent shape. Economically, the property tax, not the property tax, the sales tax were on the increase, and we've said for many, many years that those are going to eventually fall. There was a lawsuit that was settled where we were able to get sales tax from online sales, which drastically changed the budget of Fremont County and everywhere, I'm sure. We have now at this point seen that starting to settle down a little bit. We knew it would eventually, but it is doing that. But I think when I came into office, we were relying on PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, to help balance our county budget. We get it $1.4 million. And what that payment in lieu of taxes is money from the federal government of all the federal lands that we have in the county that we cannot collect property tax on because property tax is our main funder. And having to use that money to balance the budget and not knowing from year to year whether that was going to be approved by Congress or not, it was kind of scary. So we've worked and done it, not relying on that, where if they do decide not to fund it one year, we're going to be okay. There's other factors in play now, of course, with the state and federal government, but it's kind of interesting to see how we kind of have rolled with the changes. And as Commissioner Bell said, trying to budget conservatively, I think, has helped us tremendously. When our numbers come in higher than we anticipated, that's always a great thing. Sometimes they're right at them. Once in a while they're lower, but I think you've got to be conservative and expect those lows to come from time to time. And then as far as the reserve goes, just before I took office, there was a major flood which took out a road, and that cost a lot of money to replace or fix a road that's completely washed out. That was Phantom Canyon Road. Yep. So without a fund balance, it's almost hard to do that because there's not a lot of money that you can reach out there and get. I took office right after the Hayden Pass burn fire, which the fire was bad in itself, but then after that, the aftermath, the floods and whatnot that come down and destruct private property, it affects city water because they pull out of the river because all that water, the ash and the debris come down through the river. It affects all the way down the river. And at that particular time, I learned about emergency watershed money that you can get from the federal government through the NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and reached out to them, and we ended up getting $3 million to help those folks up there that were affected by those floods, to rebuild the lands around them, restore the streams. One house was completely wiped out. The river or the flood just went right through it, literally right through that house. That one they did tear down and never rebuilt. But we were able to secure that money, get those people on board, and restore the stream flow, restoring the properties that washed out. And it's kind of cool to be able to have the ability to help those people and know the resources to reach out to. A lot of that stuff's changed with the federal government. It's changing again, but sometimes there are monies out there that are able to bring to the county level from the federal government or from the state government directly to help our citizens. And you mentioned the ARPA earlier. I think that was a weird deal. I wasn't sure that we wanted to keep that money. I don't like the federal government just giving money out, but we dang sure weren't going to send it back because they were going to send it to somebody. So what we decided to do with that, which I feel is a blessing, is we got little over $9.2 million. And as you guys know, we helped a lot of special districts in the county. We helped a lot of businesses in the county. Some who are still open today because of that help. Some who didn't weather that whole storm, even with that help. But we had about
nearly $600,000 for those community grants.
Yeah, for those community grants, with almost $2 million of it going to special districts
and nonprofits.
And nonprofits, which is your fire districts, your water districts, your sanitation district, all of those that affect all of somebody's life in Fremont County daily. We were able to help them with projects to help them sustain, to get through that hard time, and it's really neat to be able to do that and be the ones that help facilitate that and direct it. And thank God for the money. We couldn't have done it otherwise. We did use some of that money too to fix some of the county buildings that were in need of repair, which we can't afford on a normal basis, and that's a continual thing, as everybody knows. But it's just kind of exciting to be part of this and to be able to help Fremont County in any way we can. And I've always been an agriculture and advocate, and I'll still do that. So that's my passion, as you mentioned to start with, is agriculture, water, that type of stuff. I'm involved heavily with that. We'll get into that a little bit later, but that's why I want to be here, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, and I like what we're doing. And it's great to work with you two, that we have this similar mindset, so we can agree on a lot of things that we need to do, no matter which one of us bring it forward, to make the better of Fremont County. So that's our goal, and that's what we try to do.
And over the course of time, of course, in my short time here working with you guys, we have our disagreements, right? Things that we discuss earnestly. But yeah, we come down on the same side of the aisle when we agree far more than we disagree, and I think we all work together. We're rowing in the same direction.
So for me, one of the most interesting dynamics of working with the two of you, which I've loved every day, just came back from vacation actually and said, I miss this place and I miss these people way more than I ever imagined that I would.
You were gone?
We rolled our eyes
Exactly.
at them too, right?
Yeah. And you never knew, but yeah, I was gone. So now where was I? What was I going to say? No, for me, the most interesting part of it is we do see eye to eye on almost everything. However, we very often take a completely different route to get to that final decision. I may have one thing in my mind that I'm thinking, well, because of this would be in the best interest of Fremont County. And Kevin's looking at the same thing and saying, but because of this, I think this would be in the best of interests for Fremont County. And then Dwayne also, comes in from a different direction and says, well, but I've been looking at it this way, but I still have the same final thoughts and conclusions. And so for me, that really is one of the most interesting things. And I talk to people about that dynamic a lot and how we see things differently. And yet we almost 100% of the time come to the same conclusion.
And I know I approach those situations with Fremont County in mind. It's not just me and what I think I want. I mean, I hear from people all the time, as you guys do as well. So you take those ideas or those thoughts, and that's where we come to those conclusions, and it's for the betterment of Fremont County. Not everybody's going to agree all the time.
Right.
We know that. But the majority of folks do, and that's what's great to see.
And, as we sit here at this present time, if people are listening to this, 20 years from now, we're at a point in time where, at least here in Colorado, we're fortunate. There are counties across this state where the commissioners are at war with each other every day. Some of our direct neighbors, they are at war with each other. And what an awful place to have to go to work every day when you're just, it's just going to be a fight every day with the people you're trying to row with and move on down the line. But I was thinking about other counties in another context, Dwayne, when you were talking about ARPA. When we did all these grants, community grants, $600,000, special districts and organizations, nearly $2 million. And our county, we spent quite a bit on our county of that ARPA money, and rightfully so.
And are still spending. It's not quite finished yet.
We've allocated all of it, but allocated up to the $6.7 million. So we are unique, I think, in the state for those recipients of ARPA, where we actually, I don't think we're unique on the community grant side, but I think we are unique to the extent that that was the first priority, was those community grants. Let's help out the businesses that need help. And hopefully I'm not just, adding that in to my, in a Pollyannish kind of way.
No, it was true. You're accurate.
Okay. But the special districts and organizations, all those special districts, nonprofits that weren't recipients of ARPA, I don't know of any other county that did what we did.
I would agree with that. And I think one of the most important things we did right off the bat when we knew the money was coming, we chose as a county to set up a special website to ask the public, what should we do with this? And that's where a lot of those ideas and suggestions came from. So I think not only the fact that we chose to ask the public, but then we listened to what the public had to say, right? Those are the things they talked about. Our fire districts need help. The recreation district needs help. There were some other suggestions that we took as well. And then, of course, there were some that we said, well, we wish we had, $12 million to devote to this, but we really don't. And so I think it was really important for us to find out from our constituents, from the voters, from the citizens of Fremont County, what their priorities were, what was important to them, and we followed that. I think that was also very unusual in probably not only Colorado, but the entire country.
Right. No, agreed. I forgot about that. Thank you for bringing that up. We actually did go to the public and got all that feedback, and it was very helpful. I look back on this and I look at this list, and I know some entities, cities, and whatnot, they put it all in one big lump sum towards X, rural broadband or something like that, or broadband development in whatever the case may be. I look at this list of everything we did, and I have zero regrets on it.
I'm sitting here actually thinking we could do an entire podcast for One Fremont on ARPA alone.
I think you're right.
I think one thing that was the neatest about this for me is I have the western part of Fremont County. So I have 2/3 landmass, but they equal in population, right? And there's not as many businesses out west as there is in this other part of the county. But I drove up the River Road and stopped at every business I could find and talked to them about this. And to get the praises from those guys for stopping to ask them if they needed help and to, fill this little paper out and we'll see what we can do for you was so cool. And then to be able to go back down that same road and hand them a check, that was awesome.
It really was, wasn't it?
It was amazing.
My experience with doing that, because we all had the opportunity to take one or two of these businesses or nonprofits an actual check. So I chose a local restaurant that I frequent quite often, and had told them originally that we would have maybe up to $15,000, and then we had more money than we thought, so they ended up getting $25,000. But they didn't know that until I took them the check. And I still remember we went on a Tuesday night, and I called the owner over, said, I have something for you. And I said, well, if you remember, we talked about maybe $15,000. And he was like, yeah. Like, oh no, what did you do? And I said, well, we weren't able to do that. But instead, we wrote you a check for $25,000. And he almost hit his knees. I mean, he got tears in his eyes. He told me, literally, without this check, I could not have made payroll on Friday. And they're still open today.
Right.
And I'm not the only one who attributes that contribution from American Rescue Plans Act funding to them continuing to be able to have their doors open today. And so I think there are individual stories like that, stories that make a difference to not only the owners, but the workers of that business, the people who go there every day, every week, and enjoy meals there and still can continue to do that. That's what it's all about, is making a difference for individuals in our community.
Right. For the betterment of the entire community.
Absolutely.
So just, big, broad topics. And I forgot to mention earlier on, as part of this little quote unquote radio show or podcast, every once in a while, you get these dreams of, being the big radio show host, and
I've never had that dream.
I want to be.
I never have.
I want to be
either.
Rush. I want to be Rush. And I want to. But for every Rush, there is a Bo Snerdley, and that is our Lenny Saint today. So he is in here with us, trying not to hit all the sound effects on everything we say, and so he's
showing remarkable constraint. Yeah.
Yeah, see,
there
there
you
we
go.
go. There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I'm glad we did talk about ARPA, because it's been a major thing over the last 4 years that we've been dealing with. So many other things in the past that we can talk about. Our projects, Pathfinder, both the event center and pavilion, and what all went into that. Grandview Bridge,
War Memorial Park,
Park,
our East Main building.
East. That's in the ongoing one. If you haven't been to War Memorial Park, the whole new south side of the wall out there, and the repainting of the vehicles out there, pretty significant. Get out there and look at that.
It's a beautiful place.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's out at the airport for anybody that
Out at
doesn't
the
know.
airport.
Yep.
So probably the last thing, and maybe this is something we can talk about in another show, like with ARPA. But one of the most significant things, from my perspective, on the past and what this county's been through and where we're going, is these crises, these events. Dwayne, you alluded to a couple of them. Hayden Creek, Royal Gorge Fire. One of the first things that happened out of the gate for Commissioner Bell was the Royal Gorge Fire. It seems like ages ago, but it also seems like yesterday. all of the fires that have transpired countywide, significant events, and what this county does to pull together and come together. And we've had a variety of commissions in place, and how they've always locked arms and strove to take the county forward and get us through it. Since I've been here, I walked in here in the middle of COVID. You guys were there at the Genesis and saw this from the beginning, and what we were having to deal with, and then finally coming to the end of that, and the scales, the green, the blue, yellow, red, or whatever all those things were. Then we had the cyber attack in 2022. That was fun. That was an interesting day or two. Bo Snerdley over here is shaking his head.
Flashbacks. So
something obviously we never want to deal with again. And then 23, return to nature. That was kind of the big county crisis of 2023. And 2024, I couldn't think of anything. I don't think we had any major thing like that.
fortunately, no. And I'm a little bit afraid to say that. I mean, there have been times as a county commissioner that I've told people, you know, we've had the rains, we've had the fires, we've had the floods. I'm waiting for the locusts to show up because that's kind of how it felt.
Which there's always fire somewhere, but it was almost uneventful last year when it came to any of those sorts of things.
Very,
Thank
very
God.
quiet. Yes.
You know, sometimes those blessings come down on us and we don't realize it until we look in the rearview mirror and go, oh, that was a good year.
But let's just say we're not opposed to continuing that stretch.
But
Exactly.
you know, I think you can't minimize it, but there were stuff that happened last year that affected a lot of people in the county. And that was one, the state bridge inspector going by and closing a bridge. One single bridge on the west end at Texas Creek crippled a business.
Right.
There's access to BLM land there, and we had to shut that bridge immediately once they inspected it, and it took a few months to get that bridge fixed. And it's amazing how it's an off-system bridge that really goes nowhere, except it gives you access to BLM and some private land. But it did affect so many people. So you've got a lesser of a disaster, but it was still a bad thing. That's the only thing I can think of 2024. But little things like that we deal with and don't realize how much they did impact so many people. Whereas a big flood, everybody sees it, right? A lot of people didn't know that bridge was out even, but it did still affect quite a few people. And we kind of roll with it and do what we can and reach out to everybody we know to get it fixed as quick as we can and then not think about it again, you know? And
that's a great point. I forgot about those things because when we have that out on the east end now too, at that closed bridge, they can affect people in the locality within the locality. I mean, to a great degree. So thanks for that reminder on that. Well, it's not the one that made national news. It still affects them pretty seriously.
Affected them. And, Grandview was close to being in that situation,
right,
of being shut down. And we were proactive enough that we were saving money for several years to help rebuild that bridge with grant funding that we ended up receiving. And we're able to do it because bridges aren't cheap.
No.
Yeah, and in the end, it still ended up costing $1 million plus more than we ever imagined it was going to.
Right.
So,
But that could have been one of those that we averted because we were planning on that, and we have other bridges that we're saving money for as well. There's a lot of old infrastructure in the county.
Right, and we can anticipate seeing more of that in the future and not less of that, given the age of the infrastructure.
Unfortunately, that's true.
So a lot of those topics, let's come back to in a different show.
Absolutely.
But let's kind of bullet point the present and the future. What's going on now? We'll start with Dwayne, but what do you see in the immediate time frame here of what's going on in Fremont County?
So I think in my role that I play with National Association of Counties and part of Public Land Steering Committee in Western Interstate Region, which is the 15 western states, we have a forest, and it is in poor health. And we were just talking about fires, and until the federal government starts taking care of their forest or letting somebody in there to manage these forests, we're going to have those fires. And those fires are catastrophic only because of the fuels that are in those fires. So with the work that I'm involved with National Association of Counties, that's our focus is public lands forest health and trying to minimize the damage when there is a fire. The reaction time that they have on a fire, the mitigation before the fire, the mitigation after the fire, or the help after the fire when there is floods, because inevitably there's a flood after a fire. So working on that, not only representing Fremont County, but as representing Colorado and then the 15 western states, as I said, it's pretty amazing to have a unified voice from people in all of those 15 states that have the same problem, and we can work on the same deal. It doesn't matter what your political preference is. We can all agree that our forests are in poor health. They need to be fixed. We need to help you do it, and how can we do it? And we have a seat at the table and trying to work on that. So I feel blessed to be able to do that, and we just keep pushing forward with that. And we're making some headway. When administration changes, you got to kind of build up again, but we're making headway with that. And I think that's important for Fremont County, because almost 50% of our land in Fremont County is public land, whether it be federal or state, BLM, Forest Service, or state. And if they're not healthy forests, it could cause trouble, burn people's homes down. It could, it would be hard, but it could come into Canyon City and cause a catastrophe. And we don't want that to happen.
And that part that you had mentioned earlier, and just now in relation to fires, the part that probably gets lost in the discussion a lot, at least in the minds of folks, they see burning trees and burning houses, but the water quality.
Water quality is huge.
Downstream water quality is a massive consideration when we talk about forest health, potential wildfires, et cetera.
And the water quality is not just during the fire immediately after it, it's for years after it. Up here in the western part of the county, because of a fire, trees were left standing and never taken out. There was some value in that wood, but they were left. Now they're laying on the ground like a bunch of pixie sticks into huge watersheds. That's going to affect the quality of the water and cause water places have to treat it differently because of the toxins that are coming off of that decaying wood or whatever else is happening in that forest. That's another avenue that we're tackling with the federal government, is to be able to get industry in there to help clean up after these fires and get the wood while there is some value to it, because it does affect for a long period of time. It's interesting. It's amazing how long it lasts.
So this goes back to something I said in our introductions. You know, your involvement with CCI, NACO, WIR, it benefits Fremont County, and the same thing with Commissioner Bell, with president of CCI for a couple of years, and you're involved, and you're president of the Mountain Region. I'm pointing at Dwayne. I'm pointing at him like everybody can see me pointing at him. But I'm pointing at Dwayne. He's the president of the Mountain Region,
and I'm also president of the Public Land Steering Committee.
The Public Land Steering Committee, and the vice president of
I'm the first vice president of WIR. Which
WIR.
next year I'll be the president of it. So
which is the Western Interstate Region.
Interstate Region, which is kind of a subset of NACO,
National Association of Counties.
Yeah, it's in the alphabet soup of county government, county organizations anyway. And Debbie, Commissioner Bell, was president of Colorado Counties Incorporated. She's involved in Rural Caucus with NACO and a thousand other things in the resume.
Absolutely. So
and all these things benefit Fremont County.
Pretty much everything that you're bringing up, Kevin, I'm sitting here thinking we could do a Fremont podcast on that topic alone. Yeah. And one of those was the advocacy that we all do, because I'm sitting here thinking, as he just explained, Dwayne does a lot with public lands and water. So I also am a member on a steering committee with NACO, the National Association of Counties, as well as the work we all do with CCI. And I focus more on rural and agricultural issues there. Kevin, of course, is incredibly involved. I mean, we're talking neck deep still in statewide issues, especially when it comes to legislation. And so we occasionally get questions of, well, why did all three of you feel the need to go to that particular conference? Well, because we follow different tracks. We don't do the same thing when we go to one conference. We don't sit in the same meetings unless it's a plenary session and everyone's expected to attend. I mean, if the President of the United States is going to come and talk to you, we're probably all going to be there for that one. But we follow different tracks. We have our own meetings. We have our own issues that we advocate for. Dwayne and I both have gotten pretty good at running national resolutions through NACO that become part of NACO policy. And so it's a lot of work that we do, that we don't only work inside our own community, but we advocate every single day for everyone in our community, in our state, and in our nation as a whole.
Submitted a resolution last week again for
I did
NACO,
mine on Thursday.
which is actually working its way through Congress right now, and that's part of it. It becomes NACO's policy, but we also try to get legislators to push those through, and mine is working its way through Congress. We'll see if it gets through, but it's to help anybody that's doing fire or natural disaster mitigation, actually.
And that's what NACO is all about, is good legislation for the entire
Right.
country.
Well, we can, in our future podcasts, we can talk about a lot more of the present because what is relevant right now on the national level, how it affects counties, how it affects Fremont County and Fremont County citizens, like Doge
Yep.
and the current feud between the president and Elon Musk. These things they have local impact. Ultimately, they have local impact. The big, beautiful bill. How's that going to affect everything?
And how is it not going to affect
Right.
specific things?
And what's real and what's fantasy, fabrication about the effect of the big, beautiful bill. We got an email this morning, if you guys saw that, in regard to how's that going to affect the hospital when it comes to Medicaid, Medicare funding. Is it going to negatively affect our local hospital? So that and the state budgets, declining revenues, legislation that affects us on the local level every year.
Unfunded
mandates,
Yes.
the loss of local control, the constant attacks every single year when it comes to that.
Yep.
So we'll come back to that. But let's close because we're definitely toying with folks' attention span here at this point.
Probably
But
so.
the ghost of Fremont future, what's your vision? What's your vision for Fremont County? Where do you see us heading? Do you have anything specifically in mind, or even generalities? Commissioner Bell.
So in general, I'm going to say that Fremont County has produced some pretty amazing local elected officials. I think everyone who serves here, they're local people who have local experience, who grew up here or have years of experience here. They know the culture, they know the people, and I expect that to continue. So I think that's very important because your elected leaders are your leaders of the county. But we also, here in Fremont County, I think we're very blessed to have an incredible group of thought leaders, people who engage on councils, on our other elected boards, all of those special districts we were just talking about, in our churches, in our nonprofits. Those people are so well known for coming together when the need arises. And I will never see the end, unfortunately, of that need because there's always some kind of a crisis. But our folks always step up and come together to get that done. So I think in the future, even though, as we will address sometime here on this show, the future of finances in Fremont County, because it's looking a little grimmer than it has, and we can talk about that definitely. But I still think that as conservative as we are, as conservative as the county is, I think we're going to continue to be in a good shape fiscally and financially. And we will be able to do the things that we need to do to take care of not only our employees, our workers, their families, but our family as a whole. And that means everyone here in Fremont County. So I don't see a lot of big things changing here. I think one of our biggest fights will continue to be against bad legislation that affects local communities and local counties in terrible ways.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Yeah, I ditto, as I say, but I think legislation pushed down from the top, unfunded mandates, have huge effects on Fremont County and our citizens. They make legislation that'll go well in Denver, but it makes no sense in rural America, rural Colorado. And as you guys know, we've got to deal with that. And we'll continue to deal with that. I think finances wise, I'm worried about property tax next year. We don't have anything to do with that. It's all through the state legislature, and it gets kind of scary. On I guess, more positive note, if you could say it, I think Fremont County is, it's growing a little bit. It's not growing crazy and wild like some counties are in the state, which I'm happy with, but we do have to make adjustments for that too, because our roads get used more, services are needed more, those kind of things. So we've got to adapt and figure out how to be more resourceful with the resources that we do have, limited resources, I might add, as far as taking care of the roads and stuff. So we're moving in the right direction. I think we just need to continue moving in the right direction. And I think we've got a good county to do that with, and people appreciate it, and so do we.
Right. That's great. At least as far as myself, when we talk about vision and we talk about the future of Fremont County, it's all built on everything else we've just been talking about. Our past, our present, and moving into the future. How do we continue doing the good things we've been doing? And one of the things when we talk about goals or vision, I think it's something you guys are doing before I got here, and it's something we continue to do in the last 4 years is continue examining our regulations, dereg stuff, continue to work on bringing businesses. I mean, we have this manufacturing thing going out at the old Domtar plant that I don't think we can truly appreciate the impact that's going to have on the community in the future, and the number of jobs it will bring in, and revitalizing a formerly very active industrial site back into a very active industrial site, manufacturing homes out there. And so that and more we need. And I think that's something that the three of us have been walking arm in arm in and moving towards very well together. And so I look forward to continuing that, and of course fighting the legislature.
Yeah, it's even hard to agree to disagree on some of those.
The fight that never ends. Yep.
It is. As we continue this discussion, just any final words before we wrap up here?
Just, I really hope that the people of Fremont County find this to be valuable to them, to kind of, see, we joke sometimes and say, oh, you don't really want to see how the sausage is made. But maybe those are the things we can talk about, is how we do reach conclusions and what really is happening here that people don't have the opportunity to see on a daily basis.
And I would just say, if you're still with us and listening, thank you. This is our first one, but
absolutely.
As we talk about different things and different topics, and we've got a lot of them, like we can have a show on each one of these, but if there's something that you're really wanting to hear about, let us know, and maybe we can discuss that in more detail too.
And to double down on that, we do appreciate if you did make it this far. We understand, this was a long one. But it's our initial one, and we're kicking this off, and we'll try to keep it more better when it comes to time.
That's fabulous.
And
yes.
More sound effects.
And more sound effects and good fun stuff like that. And also, it won't just be the three commissioners every time. Right. We'll have maybe some other shows where we have other elected officials in, or department heads, so you can understand what they do. And we're going to make this a little bit more versatile, I think, than just simply listening to the three commissioners drone on for somewhere between 20 minutes and 2 hours. So
no one would be listening to the commissioners for that long.
And we don't want to test people's attention spans, and so we will keep it more succinct in the future. But thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. We will continue working on good content for this, and bringing you relevant information about Fremont County and what's going on here and what's going on in relation to Fremont County and the world. And I don't say that lightly. I do mean that how world events and even national events, state things are impacting us here in Fremont County, and talk about the particulars of all those things we didn't get to today. And so I'm looking forward to that. This is going to be fun. And with that, thank you for listening to One Fremont on behalf of the Fremont County Commissioners. Thank you very much.
Good day.